Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, continuing our look at the laws of magic in Warhammer The Old World, and we're now on to high magic, so let's have a look and see what the spells look like. First up is the signature spell, which is Drain Magic. This is a hex, so it's cast in the strategy phase. It's got a casting value of 9, which puts it firmly in the middle of the pack for difficulty. And the range is self, so you're casting it on yourself. So it remains in play. Whilst this spell is in play, enemy wizards that are within 24 inches of the caster's model when attempting to cast a spell must increase that spell's casting value by 2. I like it. Without a doubt, I like it. You're casting it on yourself. It's got a 24-inch range. Which is nice. So basically, you're not going to definitely this is going to be on a wizard that's going to want to be pretty close to the front line, like just behind it, to make sure that you're in range of those enemy wizards. But you can really disrupt enemy casting with this. And the fact it remains in play is really nice. So the enemy got to do something about it. Yeah, I think this is really nice. Like I say, this could have against particularly like magic heavy armies, this could have a real impact. You know, by pushing it up by 2, it just means their chance of failing is that higher. And if they fail some critical spells, that can impact their whole strategy and their whole plan. So this signature spell is definitely something I would want in my arsenal of spells. So as a signature spell, I quite like this, and it's different from the just straight up damage spell, and this can really mess with enemy casting, so I quite like this. Okay, first then up of the normal spells is a conveyance spell, which is Walk Between Worlds. Casting value of 10, and again it's on yourself. So until your next start of turn subphase, the caster and any unit they have joined gain the ethereal and reserve move special rules. That's pretty good. Ethereal's pretty nice. It can do some things with movement. The reserve move is interesting. Casting value of 10. So again, it's on the upper end of the difficulty of casting. You probably want it on a higher level wizard for reliability of casting. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's the best conveyance spell out there, but it's not bad. It has some value. Let's see what the other spells of high magic are first. But, you know, if I had to pick between this and the signature spell, I'd pick the signature spell every time. Next up, Fiery Convocation. So this is the high magic missile. Casting value of 10 again. So another higher difficulty level of cast. It's got a range of 18. So it puts it in the middle of the pack for range. It's not quite a fireball at 24. But effect is a large 5-inch template. That's a big old template. Over the center of the enemy unit, once placed, the template will scatter D3 plus 1 inches. Enemies will be hit by normal template rules, which means if it's fully under, it automatically hits. Partially under is a 4+. They suffers a single strength for AP -2 hit, and it's flaming attacks. So it's always going to scatter at least 1 inch. No, it's always going to scatter at least 2 inches. Sorry. And you can't mess with where you put it. It has to go over the center of an enemy unit. It's got flaming attacks. It's okay. I mean, the scatter makes it a bit random, and I don't particularly like random where possible. You know, that's the whole thing, right? You go for reliability. I mean, this could be quite good early in the game, where there's lots of enemy units. They're quite bunched up, but at the same time, you've got low range, so you're going to have to be very far forward to get this off early. How often are you going to cast this? Maybe twice in a battle. And I mean, maybe more often, but you're not going to be doing much with it because you're not going to want it have any chance of coming back. It does say enemies will be hit. It doesn't say friend or foe. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just not sure how much damage it will do, but it is at least a big template. Interesting one. Tempest, Magical Vortex, casting value of 9, range is 12, effect remains in play. Placed a 3-inch round template with a centre within 12 inches of the caster. Okay. Template does not move and is treated as dangerous terrain. Okay. Whilst within 6 inches of the template, enemy units treat open ground as difficult terrain and difficult terrain as dangerous terrain. Okay. So this is a movement disrupting spell. So you're going to put this down and you're going to basically give the enemy some movement disruption. And if they want to move around it, of course, they're going to have to wheel. If they wheel around it, it's going to cost them movement, which means they can't move as far. They're not going to, and that's within 6 inches of template as well. So 6 inches from the edge of that 3-inch template. So that's a reasonably large space where you're going to have difficult and dangerous terrain. Most often it's probably going to be difficult terrain. I think it's going to be more of a rare occasion where you're going to be putting this that's on already difficult terrain. So most of the time you're going to be causing difficult, not dangerous terrain around it and dangerous terrain within it. Enemies are still going to want to be careful of it and not get in it. So for movement disruption, I think it's good. The lack of range, 12-inch range, is low, especially given the template doesn't move. So again, it's okay. I'm not overly thrilled with it, but it's not terrible at the same time. I think there's some interesting things you can do with it from a movement disruption perspective. It's just you can't have that impact at range. Like when are you going to use this? It's a bit more of a last-ditch thing to sort of put on a flank to force an enemy to go around it, which they may just choose to take the difficult terrain. So, yeah, interesting. Corporeal Unmaking, Assailment. Okay, this is the Assailment one. Casting value of 8, so typically low value casting value for Assailment spells. Casting combat, what is it? A single enemy unit the caster is engaged with suffers D3 strength 5 hits with no armor or regeneration saves allowed. So an average of 2 strength 5 hits with no armor save. So an average, let's say on average 1 casualty, depending on the toughness of the unit, but that's not that great, is it? I mean, at least with the strength 5, you can punch up a bit. You can maybe go after some tougher enemies. But a lot of enemies are going to have that sort of toughness 5, 6. Are probably going to have 3+ wounds. So unless you're rolling a 5 or 6 for your D3 hits, you're not even going to be killing a single one of those sort of monstrous infantry type elements. Again, I'm not overly thrilled with it. Fury of Cain. Okay, an enchantment, range 12 inches. So you have to be within 12 inches of the friendly unit before you move. Until the end of this turn, the target friendly unit gains the extra attacks +1 special rule. This spell may target a friendly unit engaged in combat. Hey, giving any unit +1 attack is a good thing. Casting value of 9 seems a little high just to get +1 attack from some of the other spells we've seen in the other laws. And it's only got a range of 12. So, I mean, if I compare it to some of the stuff we've seen elsewhere, it seems like it's got a lower range, it's got a similar casting value, and it only gives you a buff to your attacks. I'm not saying that the buff to the attacks is bad, but when I compare it to some of the spells, the laws, I don't know, again, unless I directly can go back and look at them and do some comparison, it feels reasonable, but not necessarily as good as some of the stuff we've already seen. If that makes sense. Again, that low range. The low range, I mean, it's a friendly unit, so you're not putting yourself at threat, but it's just that ability to be flexible and picking which unit you get this on, because you can't move before you cast it. So at the end of the enemy's turn, however the battlefield looks, that's what you've got to choose from, which limits your ability to put it on the unit you might really want it on. Okay, the last one then in the high magic, Shield of Safri. It's an enchantment, casting value of 9, it's got a range of 18. Okay, now we're talking, we're on a medium casting value, we've got a good range. What does it do? Until the end of this turn, target friendly unit gains a 5+ ward save. Other enchantments currently on a targeted unit immediately expire. So if you've got this enchantment on a unit, it's the only enchantment it can have. Can't have any other enchantment. Which is fine. I mean, it's a 5+ ward save. It's a good one to have. An 18-inch range is the opposite of what we saw on the previous one, which means it's enchantment. So you're casting it at the same time as the previous one. Which is it's in that strategy phase, so it's after the enemy turn before you move, because it's 18 inches. You can have more. You've got more choice on the battlefield of which one you give the 5+ ward save to. And a 5+ ward save, as we've seen before, pretty good. But I'm sure we saw another one that was a 5+ ward save, and that also gave you other benefits as well. I think there was one that gave you defended as if you were behind a low linear obstacle sort of thing. So, and didn't cancel other enchantments. So again, I don't know. It's good. I'm not saying it's not good. A 5+ ward save is good. Again, I'm trying to cast my mind back to other spells, and it seems like the other spells that gave us a 5+ ward save gave us some other benefit with it than just the 5+ ward save. I don't know. Maybe misremember. Again, I'd have to go back and compare. But overall, high magic, it's got most of the spells in there seem useful. There's a feeling to me, I mean, that they're just not quite as good as what we've seen in some of the other laws. Maybe we'll have to come back and do some more deep diving on that, or maybe we'll have to, when we start getting into the faction focuses and looking at the armies, which actually, I think that's what I'll do. When I get into the faction focuses and we start taking a look at the armies, they're going to take this. We look at what you could do with the spells and those units at that point. Because right now we're just taking it in isolation of paper. So just keep that in mind. We're just looking at the spells as they're written on paper in the rulebook, and how that, what it says on paper, how that feels compared to the other spells that are also written on paper, as opposed to applying it directly to the battlefield. But there are definitely things where you use your experience of playing Warhammer fantasy games and rank and file games, where you think how often it can be used and how much valuable it can, how much value it can add, and so on. So yeah, high magic, interesting. It's an interesting lore. Like I say, there's definitely uses there. It's not a terrible lore. I don't think any of the laws are overall terrible, and magic has been toned down across the board. But I don't know, I just feel it's like not quite as good. Those first 3 laws definitely seem to have done better than the ones we've talked about recently. So battle magic, dark magic, demonology seem to stick out in my mind as being pretty good compared to elementalism and high magic. But we got a few more spell laws to have a look at. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. free for you to do, and it means a lot for me, so thank you for that in advance. And thank you to all those that have already subscribed and are returning to watch this series on the laws of magic. You've been watching The Ghost Owl. Tune back in as we get into some more laws of magic. 3 to go.